23rd day of October, 1679. After Susan closed the door on Henry, apothecary husband of Rachel, my eldest daughter, that lived nearby, the same that had once prepared the opium that had failed to loosen Strode's tongue, I returned to the kitchen. Susan went back to the housekeeping, since she had to do the work of two now I no longer employed my maid Margaret. I had dismissed her soon after the Jesuits were hanged, for she slandered me to Rachel, saying that Willoughby was riding me, and she did not mean he treated me shabbily. "'Tis common truth, Madame Cellier." With her head raised, Margaret had looked me directly in the eyes when I confronted her. "'Tis the word that fill every bar and coffee-house." I might have cut out her wagging tongue had I not encouraged that idea in jail, and fervently wished that that was where she had heard it. But still, hearing tell she told such tales to my blood, sullying her mind against me, was not to be tolerated. "You live in this house. Know you this, that you told her yourself?" I raised my hand in challenge. "Have you proof of the tales you tell?" She could not have seen a thing that did not happen. Margaret blushed, whether from shame of spreading false rumours or from indiscretion, I knew not. She looked to the ground, but did not stay silent. Her voice was still defiant. "I see how you look at him, madam. You are not indifferent." "He is but a youth, Margaret. What think you? Would he look at an old woman as me?" I did not wish to appear that I was fishing for affirmation, so I fast continued. "Of course he would not, any more than I would want any other than my husband." "You spend uncommon time with the man, madam. He is notorious for being neither fickle of character nor caring of age. I see how he looks at you too." Whether I was more angry at Margaret's loose tongue, her insult of me, or the truth of her words, I could not tell. She had no doubt caught me secretly admiring our young guest now and then. I could not at that time fail to find his stature exceptionally satisfying. And her eye might be equally keen regarding his look to me, though he had done nothing to indicate more than gratitude and respect towards me. However, this did not give her the right to speak up to me as she was doing, nor did it give a maid the right to say as she pleased about one that paid her, and to enforce such airy talk from my home as if it were the truth. My hand of its own volition came up and slapped Margaret's face. The sound of it gave me the tremors, for it was not a thing I had ever done to a servant before. "Margaret," I said, then stopped. It was wrong of me to smack Margaret, but it had been wrong of her to talk about me around town, worse, to my daughter. I could not have one of so little honour in my service. "Get out, Margaret. Get out and take your things with you." I saw the realization that she was evicted fill her face from bottom up. First her chin dropped as her mouth fell open, then her cheeks flushed, filling the mark of my hand, and last her eyes filled with unshed tears. "I have served you well for many years, madame. Have pity on me. Do not throw me on the streets at this hour. My fault is not so harsh. I deserve no such treatment. This is only one lapse I learned of, Margaret. But am I omnipresent, that I know of every time you blacken my name? How can I ever know if you besmirch me again? It is bad enough that others talk nonsense of me behind my back, but to have you do so as well is far worse. I should be inclined to trust one that lives in my household, but I cannot trust one that does not stand up for my name, even less one that blows on embers of talk and fires it into full flames. You must go, Margaret, but I will take pity on you this night, and you will leave on the morrow." With no words of gratitude for my concession, Margaret bent her head once more, gathered her skirts, and left the room. Before she closed the door, she wiped one eye with her hand and said, Dismissing me will not dismiss the talk, madam. The flame has been burning too long, and as it is unstoppable as the great fire, your name has long been ashes beneath most decent folks' feet. If I had a rejoinder to that, Margaret was no longer there to hear it. She left the next morning, and that was all I saw of her since. I had as yet found no replacement, and so Susan took over the cooking as much as she was able, and sometimes when my tasks did not fill the day, I was able to do some of the household tasks. This day, after I had gathered the teacups Henry and I had recently used and taken them to the kitchen, I was pleased I did not have to share the cooking area with Margaret while I worked, since rarely did I have time to make my preparations from the herbs I had dried or steeped in oil months ago. Oh, could there be a more pleasing way to pass the time, and such an agreeable nosegay of summer scents gone until another year passes. It was only disagreeable that my son-in-law had brought news of Willoughby's deeds from the town, though his ears had merely picked the bones of the matter from gossips ripe in the coffee-houses. Any den where busybodies collect was already replete with the meat of it, and it was enough to know the captain was soon to be returned to the place I had first found him. Henry was unable to discover all of what had now occurred, but I feared I would not be pleased to know all of it, particularly as it was only 2 days since Henry and my husband had once more given bail for Willoughby's release, and were forced to give sureties that he would stay free from trouble. The man was proving a badly chosen nag, more burden than benefit, only discovered after the horse dealer had left town. On Thursday, a week before, which must have been the 15th day of October in the 30th year of the reign of King Charles, Willoughby had come to me, his face flushed in excitement, with news he had seen proof of the Presbyterian plot against Catholics, and had asked for my guidance on the matter. Forgetting our earlier fight, he had, he told me, held vigil at the Green Ribbon Club, and good fortune had brought him into the acquaintance of one of the most unpopular men of government, Mr. Mansell. It transpired that this man had no sense, and kept it in his room damaging papers showing the involvement of himself and others of the plot. Willoughby informed me that Lady Paris had told him to take rooms near the man and ply him with a drink or two. Then, when Mansell was in his cups, Willoughby should put the man's pocket some papers revealing his treason. I was convinced of the dishonesty of putting papers in the man's pockets if they were not there before, but if Willoughby spoke the truth, we could soon see the end to our persecution. I had not forgiven him, but I put aside my own loathing for the sake of the cause to talk to him. So I told him I was shocked that he would even say such a thing about Lady Paris, and that I did not believe she was such a woman as to fabricate a plot where there was none, and he must be vigilant to honesty. Furthermore, I told him, I would have no part of any false plot. "Well, hang me if the plot isn't as real as this table," he had said, slapping his hand down hard on the surface, and made me jump. "It is only for want of proof he does not hang from the gallows." So adamant was he of the man's guilt, and that proof of it lay in the man's rooms, I suggested he did as Lady Paris said, and found rooms nearby. "But," I told him, "you must be sure to stay honest, for if you once stray down the path of deceit, you will not so easily find the path back to truth. You must find where he keeps these papers you spoke of, and then present them to the man of law." On the Saturday 2 days after that, he returned to me and told me he had taken rooms with Mr. Harris in the Axe Yard, the very house where Mansell had lodgings. He had, he said, been to the magistrate to obtain a warrant to search Mansell's rooms, but it was refused him. He had then gone to the king, who had shown him to Secretary Coventry, who also refused him. "Why will they not look?" he shouted, quite agitated. "The proof is there to be found. I know it is there. If they will not look, he will escape the justice that should be done him. He will be free to plot the king's death and to blame it on such as us, and no one will stop him. What should be done, Mrs. Cellier? Tell me, what should be done?" I paused for a moment. I would not play false, but could not bear to think of the king in danger. "Have you gone to Customs House? I am sure they might be interested to know." "Customs House? That is no good to me," he shouted. "They are not interested in anything but smuggled goods." "And there is your answer, Captain." I placed my hands on my hips. I could hardly conceal my satisfaction. "Did you not tell me of your suspicion that Mr. Mansell conceals Flanders lace in his rooms?" "Lace? What would he do with lace? His crime is not to smuggle cloth, but to plot and design against the king. Willoughby was uncommonly slow today, possibly due to another night in the taverns. "But are you not of a suspicious nature?" I interrupted. "And are you not suspicious of his trips abroad since you have lived in his company?" I was glad to see him pause in his ranting. Now I had his attention. "Madame Cellier," he had exclaimed suddenly, "you are brilliant! They would simply have to search Mansell's rooms for contraband, and when they did, they would be sure to find the papers." So eager by this idea was he that he forgot our quarrel and came over and hugged me hard. It was quickly over. Then he was gone without another word. I was left with the smell of the day-old ale and sweat, but also of the warmth of a young body against mine, something I had long forgotten. I quickly dispelled that longing with a shake of my head and reminded to myself of the bounder he was. Yet that feeling, mixed with the memory of male smell, emerged unasked at inconvenient times over the next days, no matter how much I tried to push it away. That was all I heard of him until afternoon on Monday, the 20th day of October, when he came to our house with Justice Edmund Walkup and his men following close on his horse's tail. No sooner than Willoughby arrived with news that he had seen to it Mansell's house was searched and the papers he had seen were found, Walkup and two others came knocking at our door. "What? You have found your men, yet hunt down the one who turns him in?" I said indignantly. "Nay, Mrs. Cellier, that is not why we are here," said Walkup, the magistrate, notorious for his immorality and for his political leaning towards the Whigs. The fact that he had grown so fat on possessions zealously confiscated from those he accused of the Roman Catholic faith, heirlooms that never found their way to the king's vaults, also lay heavily against trust in him. Those treasured religious possessions, such as relics, statues, and prayer beads, he did not take into his own pockets, were burned in street fires with so much passion he took the reputation of one of the most hated magistrates of our time. "We are here to arrest—" "What?" said Willoughby. "Has he cried whore first?" "Who has? What do you talk about?" I looked at Willoughby through narrowed eyes, resenting his calling me a whore, for there was none other here he could have referred to. "What say you?" "Nay, Willoughby, we are here for you," said Walkup, taking the hilt of his sword, when it looked as if Willoughby might put up a fight. His two men had placed their hands at the ready. "You are to come before the Privy Council in the morning." "What is this? What is your reason?" Now it was Willoughby's turn to be indignant. He let go of the sword hilt now he saw they weren't here to attack him, and stood with his legs apart, backs of fists on waist, and his head held proud. "I have done the king a favour this day. This is how I am to be repaid? The council wishes to speak with you concerning the papers found in the house of Mr. Roderick Mansell, said Walkup. Ah, well, that is a great matter. Tell them I will indeed come in the morning. That is not acceptable, said Walkup with a sneer. The council are not so certain you will find your way there. I know where it is, said Willoughby, still haughty. 'Tis not for that reason your presence is doubted. It is believed you have had more than a casual interest in this affair, and might choose to find another place to be on the morrow. Nonsense, said Willoughby. I have only done what any man loyal to the king would do. In fact, I am involved in this business under the instruction of the king himself. That is as may be, but my orders are to bring you to the council in the morning. That being so, I must keep you in sight until then. It is said that you are a coney and have the habit of disappearing into a dark hole when your presence is most desired. I will see he comes in front of the council in the morning, I said. Would that is enough, Mrs. Cellier. What gives you leave to think that we might place our trust in one who places a roof over this man's head and food in his mouth? He has not lived under my roof for some past months, I frowned. These men seem to know all too much of our business. What if I were to offer sureties he will appear at the Privy Council on the morrow? Though I did not care overly much if Willoughby spent another night in prison, I would value the chance to further talk with him and discover what this was about. We will accept sureties of your husband in this matter, but not from his wife. So this Monday last, Pierre and Henry went with them to give sureties that Willoughby would come to the council on the following morning. When he returned, Pierre could hardly conceal his anger at Willoughby. When they found out what he had done, he and Henry spoke severely to the captain at some great length. Of course, he told them about my part of it, and then, when we were in private chambers, Pierre dressed me down for encouraging the captain, and for the danger I had placed myself and our family in. Lizzie, I understand. You know I do. But do not bring attention to our family in this way. 'Tis not safe at any time, but in these times of trouble we do not wish to be singled out above others. Is it not enough you write to the king and to the Parliament about the state of the prisons, and that you visit and feed those accused of treason in the prisons and involve yourself in discovering plots? Each time you do these things, you place us in full view to be judged when we should wish to be invisible. 'Tis not only yourself you risk here, but our children too. I beg of you, stay away from it. I knew he spoke good sense. Later, Willoughby had little to tell me above what he had already said, but I kept my suspicions he did not tell me everything. He had the look of one that knew which cock would win the fight, perhaps that he had hobbled the other, but would not tell which one. When I asked how they had found the papers, he was not shy to admit his part in it. What did you do there? I asked, worrying what suspicion that would put upon him. Not only was I there, but I found the papers, he said. He was brim-full of satisfaction, but still I could not help but wonder that he was particularly shifty, and it made me ill at ease. I set myself the task to discover what deed he had cloaked so imperfectly. And now my daughter's husband was of the opinion that Willoughby might be in more trouble than we know of. What should I do about this rapscallion? Where once his help had appeared so fortunate to our cause, now at every turn did he undo the work we first had done. I put my mind to the problem of Willoughby while I worked in the kitchen, bagging raspberry leaves for Mrs. Browntree. Her first 3 babies had come some weeks late, causing her considerable discomfort, and raspberry leaf tea might assist the birthing along. I did little more than place the leaves into the sack, before the still broken bell over the door jangled discordantly. I resolved to find a person to fix the bell casing when I went out later today. I soon heard Susan's footsteps come past the kitchen towards the door, so I continued to the bag of raspberry leaves with some twine. My visitors needed no introduction, nor, it seemed, did she wish to stand on ceremony. The high voice of Lady Elizabeth Powys found its way to the kitchen the moment the door was opened. "I wish to speak with Mrs. Cellier. Is she at home?" "Welcome, my lady," I heard Susan say in the way I had taught her. "Please be so kind as to wait while I inquire." I wiped my hands on a clean cloth, took off my apron and smoothed my dress down, ready to move to a more appropriate room to receive my visitor, and was glad I took that moment, since I was not given further opportunity to move any place to greet her properly. "Mrs. Cellier, there you are!" Lady Powys stepped so close to Susan's footsteps. In Susan's footsteps, she almost trod on her heels as they entered the kitchen. She showed every sign of disturbance and did not think it out of order to summarily dismiss my maid with a brusque, "Susan, please leave us now." Susan looked to me, and I nodded once. "Lady Powys," I bobbed in a curtsy, "what troubles you?" "Your man, Captain Willoughby, troubles me." He troubles everybody, I thought. "My lady?" "I have recently come from Lord Peterborough with disturbing news." "What is it, my lady? Has something happened upon him?" "I must warn you, it is not what has been done to him, but what he has done to others." A familiar feeling of foreboding came over me. I had seen all manner of faces of the captain I did not take kindly to, and supposed Lady Powys was about to reveal more of his ungentlemanly nature. He might be the most foolish blunder I had yet made, or would ever make. "Pray do not keep it to yourself, Elizabeth," I said with impatience, dropping the formalities as sometimes we were wont to do. She obliged by speaking frankly. "After you and he were at the King, you were taken by one Colonel Halshall to the Secretary, Mr. Coventry?" "Aye," I nodded, that we were. "It has come to pass that our young man is known to the Colonel as a scoundrel of the very greatest notoriety. The Colonel, you see, is acquainted with Captain Richardson of Newgate, and he has informed him of the rogue's convictions. He is a coiner, a forger, a thief. What think you of that? It is said that any wrong a man can do, this villain has done. He has stood in the pillory for coining, had his hands burned for thieving, his ears nailed for counterfeiting, and was whipped out of divers towns for ill-doings. Word is out in high circles, your young man not only should not be trusted, but should be hanged on the hill." I could not tell her I knew some of this news already, for I should have told her before ever I let him near her. My suspicions are confirmed. I had not long thrown him from our house for this ungodly conduct before I was forced to give further bail for his conduct, I said. "My dear woman, do not mistake my pause for being at the end of it. I am the bearer of yet worse news. Your husband is Willoughby's master. For this, those who speak harshly of the captain tar you both with the same brush. Some that know you defend your honour, but I must warn you that your names are joined together with this villain. It does not help that you have written to Parliament on many times about the maltreating of prisoners, revealing him as a source. This has distinguished you singularly as his voice." "What should I have done? Our government would have it that we are high above the violence of countries such as Spain and France, claiming we are as angels against their cruelty. Yet every day men and women are ill-used in prisons in the very streets where we live. If I did not say so, who would? I will continue to write as long as such abuse goes on." "You are a good and charitable woman, Lizzie," she said, "but I fear you are the one ill-used. I believe myself maltreated also. We must be careful. It would be wise to avoid any further use of this rogue, any at all. He will destroy our cause and everything we have worked for. He came to me 2 days since for guidance, I told her. Did he indeed? I told her about his recent visit. He said he had proof of the Presbyterian plot against the Roman Catholics, that he had seen papers in the rooms of a man called Mr. Roderick Mansell. He also said that neither the King nor Judge North would give him such a search warrant. The reasons for that are clearly that you have told me, that he has been proved untrustworthy by his past deeds. If it is so that there is proof that will serve to free my husband, perhaps, then I must make use of it. Despite her so recent assertion that we should no longer use the captain, the wind blew Lady Paris the other way when her husband's life was at stake. She had lived wretchedly in fear for her husband's life for more than a year. Honour comes easy when the life of the man you love is not in danger. I was in that fortunate position, but not so Lady Paris. He came here begging my thoughts on this matter, I said. And pray, what did you tell him? I told him, if they would not give him a search warrant to discover the plot, perhaps the Customs House might find reason to search the rooms and happen upon the papers. It is only using a different instrument to the same ends. He was delighted with such an idea and declared he would not have thought of that himself. And what has happened since then to put everyone of London in such a flutter? I understand Mansell's papers were found in as Willoughby said, I started, but then I stopped. I did not know why, if Willoughby was proved right, the Privy Council and every other person made such quarry of him. Willoughby has not told me all of what has come to pass at Axe Yard on Monday, but I feel sure he has done something that he should not have done, else they would not have such claims on him. We ought not trust him at all. He is a double-edged sword. With one thrust he cuts our enemy, with the next he carves us asunder. He is a dangerous man that does not care which side he harms, as long as he has his peace. I could not deny it. Willoughby had shown he was all for gain. If he had once repented his deeds, he had then repeated them, and that is no repentance at all. Well, I said, I shall deny him further entry to this house. He has gone too far. As if he had waited in hearing for these very words, the door from the kitchen garden opened, and there he stood, cocky as any rooster in a coop full of hens, strutting in with a tall tail feather in his wide-brimmed cap. He took off his cap and swept it wide as he bowed low. My Lady Paris and the good Mrs. Cellier, how bountiful to discover you here together. What? Are you here with a magistrate again so soon? I said haughtily, hardly hiding my anger at his recent conduct. Compose yourself, madam. My news is practical. I will have myself back in your good favour with the papers I bring. Are they Mansell's? I asked. No, madam, I will not reveal to you their exact nature, else the details of it might slip out in an unguarded moment. You cause tongues to waggle all over town, yet you think it is I with a loose tongue. You have a wit about you, Captain. In God's name, what have you done with the town, that the town is in such a bustle about you? I have done nothing to alarm you, madam, but cannot tell you at this time. Only know I have forwarded our cause this day. Do you play games, Captain Willoughby? Lady Paris seemed to be both angry and curious. Lives are close to the gallows. Tell us what you have done. My lady, it is better that you do not know. Your innocence might defend you, and your ignorance of the matter will be your best plea. Lady Paris took a deep breath. Somehow we stood side by side facing the rascal, united in extracting his story, but for once he stood firm and kept his mouth closed. "Enough, ladies. I must go to my rooms and prepare myself for further examination. I will not tell you what might bring you down." "If we are asked, how will we know what we should not speak of if we do not know what it is we should not know of?" I said. "My humble apology to you, ladies. I did not come to you so disagreeable to see me, or I to you. I did not come to have you so disagreeable to see me, or I to you." He reached a hand beneath his cloak, unbuttoned the silver buttons on his red tunic, one that I had purchased with the gold from the king, and that gave him the false appearance of a lord or gentleman, or means at least, and withdrew a small book of threaded papers, tied with red ribbon, similar to those that he had shown the king before. "Take these, and hide them. Hide them well, for they hold proof of the direst treason you did never imagine." I took the papers he held out to me. Lady Paris questioned, "What proof do they hold? Can they help my husband?" "I can tell you no more, my lady. Know that what these papers contain is in your favour and can do you no harm, only good." "Then why will you not tell us the details inside?" "My lady, I do not wish you to be part of this. Your purity will bring us through these times." With that he bowed deeply once more and left the way he came into the garden. "Well, upon my soul, what do you make of that?" Lady Paris exclaimed to the closed door. "I am tempted to open these papers and look, but what if he is right, and knowing their content condemns us?" I went to the bell cord and pulled twice. When the maid appeared, it was not Susan, but Anne Blake, that had been in my service many years and had proved her loyalty over and over. I instructed her, "Anne, take this book and hide it where I know not." Without question or raised brows, Anne took the bundle. "Yes, ma'am." "And do not read it," I added as we left the kitchen, though I knew to say so was needless. I myself saw Lady Paris to the door, where she impugned another piece of news. "The captain is being followed at the direction of the king. The king believes he is up to no good. Pray, be vigilant." "From whence come you by the snippet?" "Lord Peterborough has told me it," she said. With that, Lady Paris said, "Fare thee well," and I returned to the kitchen to make lotions for my mothers and their infants, just as Anne passed me leaving it. Soon the room was filled with scents of simmering herbs and potions. Things were not going as I had envisaged them going, and I was not at all satisfied about my own part in it. If I had not fallen for Willoughby's charms, we were likely not be in this mess now. I must have no more to do with him, I decided as I bottled my medicine. I would have nothing more to do with him, that is, once he had given me proof of the wicked designs he had told me of.